How do you know when it's time to hire your first employee? That's the question we're answering on today's episode of The Profit Pillar Show. I'm your host, Parker Stevenson. I am the CEO of the accounting firm Evolve Finance, and I'm also the author of the book Profit Pillars. Hiring your first employee is a big deal. I know a lot of online and modern small business owners, they will have some contractors in their business first, likely before they ever hire their first employee. And that's a big deal too, but it just feels different because hiring a contractor, let's say you're hiring your first accountant or your first bookkeeper, they're going to do important work in your business. And it's cool that your business has gotten to a point where you're like, yeah, I need some support around my finances, or I'm going to hire my first VA to help manage my inbox and things like that. But it does feel different when it's an employee. There's a different sense of responsibility that comes with hiring an employee that, rightfully so, can be a little more stressful. What are you allowed to do with an employee versus a contractor? And what are your obligations to an employee? And, that's a whole nother conversation there. But I wanted to go through 5 questions you should probably ask yourself and go from there. Now, some of these questions, if you answer yes, you probably need to, hire an employee or transfer a contractor into an employee if they're open to it. And then some of these questions are just things to think about. But even if you say yes to some of these things, maybe you're still not ready. But I'm going to try to go through as many of the scenarios as I can by answering these 5 questions to help you figure out, are you ready to hire an employee? Now, the first question should be, are you legally obligated to hire an employee? Because I will say the online business space as a whole has improved in this regard over the years, where a lot of our clients at Evolve Finance would just be hiring contractors to do everything. No one wanted to hire an employee because I will say, many years ago, a lot of online business owners, they didn't feel like they were running real businesses. The money was very real, but I don't think subconsciously they felt like their businesses were a real business. It was almost like their businesses were just cash machines where they do this marketing stuff, money comes in, and they spend a little more money, but otherwise they're putting money into the bank and making a great living selling courses or membership sites or coaching programs or whatever it may be. Now, all those business models still exist today, but now these businesses, in order to compete, in order to deliver a better experience, in order to not stress out the business owner, there has been a transition to now most of the clients we work with, or not most of them, far more than we used to see, have at least one employee in their business now. And we're not talking about the business owner being an employee of their own business, but hiring a separate employee. Some of that is because online business owners and modern small business owners are seeing the value of employees beyond contractors, but also certain states have changed laws, like California, for instance, has gotten way more strict on hiring contractors and what really constitutes a contractor versus an employee. And so this has changed quite a bit. And so it is important that you understand that the contractors that are serving in your business, should they be employees? Now, I am not an employment lawyer. I'm only here to educate. But a lot of the times, if you have a contractor in your business, they're working in the US, they're working 40 hours a week, they're only working in your business, that's usually a sign that they probably need to become an employee. Even if they don't want to, you're probably going to need to talk to a business attorney, maybe your accountant. I know a lot of clients will talk to their accountants about this stuff, but really your accountant isn't the person you should be talking to. You should be talking to a business attorney of some sort. Find one on Yelp in your town or city, wherever. Talk to someone and get their opinion on, legally, should this person be an employee? Am I taking on any risk? And while we've never seen our clients ever get audited for tax purposes. Knock on wood, for the last 14 years, just hasn't happened. But we have seen clients get hit up for employment laws for whatever reason. Some of it's random. Sometimes the client just didn't kind of dot their P's and Q's. I can't remember how that phrase goes, so I probably shouldn't have used it. But the business owner may have slipped up with that contractor and put themselves in a situation where now they're kind of being audited for how they were paying a team member. And it can get expensive because now you owe all the employer side of their taxes that you weren't obligated to pay before. And the more you paid that person and the longer you paid that person for, the more you have to catch up on all the employee taxes you should have been paying, plus any penalties and fees. So it can get you. So it's worth paying a little money up front to talk to a lawyer about if any of your contractors should be employees, to just get clear on that. You can do a Google search, do some research on your state. I'm not going to walk through everything for you because, there is a lot, people think there's gray area. Well, if they have an LLC and there's an agreement in place and blah, 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 maybe, but also maybe not. You're not a lawyer. You don't know. And it's important you're talking to someone who sees what your particular state is enforcing and what they're not, and how much risk you're taking by continuing to work with a contractor versus just bringing them on as an employee. Now, the next question I think you should ask yourself, beyond legally, should you be paying one of your contractors as an employee, but are you paying a bunch of different contractors? I've seen clients' P&Ls where I see their contractor section where they're paying so many different contractors to do so much sporadic work that I think, especially with technology, and there's more people with the type of broad skills I think small business owners need around operations and marketing and tech, you can find someone to just pay one person to do all those jobs. And a lot of the times it's going to be cheaper because unless all of your contractors are overseas and working in countries where you can pay them a lot less than you would pay them in the US, then chances are you could pay one person a full-time salary in the US and at least be competitive in terms of price, but also have your systems and operations be streamlined, because now you don't have to have so many people working together on so many things. You can have one person kind of managing all the projects, all the processes in one place. That does mean they may need to be a Jack or Jill of all trades, but that's okay. In a small business, when you're just getting started, that's fine. They can do a little customer service. They can do a little tech. They can do a little marketing. They can help with a little bit of financial admin stuff. It's okay. Hopefully, as your business grows, they'll specialize either in operations or marketing or wherever it is. And you can bring other people to specialize in some of the other areas that your business needs as well. Or maybe you start to bring in some contractors to do certain work, but you keep it in-house for other tasks and projects. That's fine. And I also think it's so important to understand you're never going to bring a full-time tax accountant into your business. You're never going to bring a full-time lawyer. You're probably never even going to bring in a full-time bookkeeper. There are certain roles that you're going to keep that with a contractor. It's project-based work. It's not something, or it's work that only happens sporadically throughout the year. It's not something you need to bring in-house. But anybody that's doing work that affects the day-to-day of your business, the more you can kind of bring that in-house with an employee, I think the better, because then chances are they're going to be working in the same time zone as you're working in, and it's just more operationally efficient, and it might actually be cheaper, even if you're paying people overseas that are you're paying less than you would if they were a US based contractor. If you're paying a lot of people to do a lot of different things, those costs can really add up. And again, chances are the work's being done really inefficiently. I think the other thing you always have to consider too is that contractors sometimes are not just freelancers with a couple clients. Sometimes they're trying to build and scale a service, and rightfully so. More power to them. But they're going to charge you more because you're not just paying for that individual team member's time. you're paying for their time and for the business to turn a profit so they can hire more team members and serve more customers. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that, especially, like I said, for maybe a graphic designer or a tax preparer. But for people that are operationally necessary for the day-to-day aspects of your business, you don't really want to be paying a margin on that. And also, you probably want to be building internal SOPs and processes and internal knowledge on how to operate your business from a day-to-day standpoint. And having an employee can sometimes be the best route to do that. Now, the other thing I think you just have to consider here, the other question I would ask is, do you need a right-hand person in your business? Are you so overwhelmed that even managing all those contractors sounds exhausting, where you just feel like you have too many people reporting into you, regardless of if they're employees or not, and just trying to keep all the work going with the contractors while serving your clients and customers, while trying to work on the business and build the future of your business? It might be time to bring someone in who can kind of be your right-hand person. Like I was saying, a Jack or Jill of all trades, someone who has that entrepreneurial spirit, can just get a variety of things done. Maybe it's going to be sort of mediocre across all those things instead of specializing in one of those areas, but your business isn't big enough to where you need mega super specialization yet. Just knocking stuff out and doing so competently is fine, so you can be freed up to focus on clients or focus on your next offer or whatever you should be working on as the business owner, the things that are going to drive the business forward and help make more money for the business and build a more stable future for the business. And a lot of the times, again, more contractors isn't the solution. It's bringing someone in who is an employee, who's going to put your business down on their resume, who if they left, they would ask for a letter of recommendation, who is bought in to what your business is doing and can really be part of the growth and be incentivized to grow, because hopefully as the business grows, you're giving them a raise, you're giving them a title change, right? They have a vested interest in the success of the business. You're not just one of their many clients. You're their boss. You're their employer. That can have a really positive effect, both for the business owner and as the business as a whole. So if you kind of feel like, I just really wish I had a right-hand person, maybe that's a sign that it is time to find that person and give them a shot and get maybe more of the support you need in-house, not just through more contractors. Now, the other thing I kind of mentioned here is, are you trying to build a culture? I think sometimes as business owners, especially when our businesses are small, something like culture in your organization feels like, well, that's what big businesses do. I don't need to worry about culture. It's just me and some contractors. But I think business owners undervalue this, because I know we kind of did in the early stages of Evolve Finance too. We thought, hey, we're going to pay people to get things done. We need to check things off the list, do the work. Let's move on with our lives, right? Let's be responsible adults and just knock stuff out. But that's not how employment works. That's not how businesses work, because I know for a lot of business owners, it's easy to forget. You once worked somewhere else. Did you feel valued? Did you feel like your work mattered? Did you feel like you were being developed? Did you feel like you were part of something bigger than yourself? These are things the people that work in your business want as well. And if you want to attract talent, if you want to attract people who give a crap about your clients, about doing good work, then sometimes it's hard to do that just with contractors. It doesn't mean you can't find contractors that care or do good work, but a lot of times they're just going to be checking things off the list because, again, you might be one of many clients that they're working with. And again, for certain tasks in your business, things that are operationally necessary on a daily or at a very minimum weekly basis, where they're interacting with clients, they're interacting with your systems and processes, where they're interacting with you. A culture, a team culture, a company culture can make a massive difference on the quality of work you're getting, on the care you're going to get from the team that's working in your business. And it's very hard to get that from contractors. A contractor very rarely is going to be as bought in as an employee. And a team of employees that are part of a culture where they feel like they're their supervisors, their bosses, the business as a whole gives a crap about them, supports them, wants to see them grow and develop, wants to see them succeed, is going to actually help them develop in their careers, the work quality is night and day. But I also understand that, when you start to build a culture in your business for the first time, that's scary. Might not have ever done something like that before, but welcome to entrepreneurship. There's a whole bunch of stuff I've had to learn how to do as a business owner that I never had to do before. And you learn and you figure it out. You get support when you need it. You read, you learn, you work with a coach, do whatever you need to do. And I will say that leadership and culture is the area we've invested in, Corey and myself, my business partner and I, where we've invested the most in our business from a coaching and development standpoint, because it's been one of the most important components for our success and the future success of Evolve Finance. So you got to start somewhere, and it might be with that first employee, and you and that first employee, because I felt it with Corey and I and our first few employees. It starts the feel and the vibe of what it means to work at your business. And if you do it well at the start, it makes things a lot easier later on when you have multiple employees as well. Now, lastly, the last question I would ask here is, do you need to take the first steps towards removing yourself from all the day-to-day operations? Because especially with like coaching and consulting businesses, freelance businesses, you can do a lot of things yourself. You can run some of these businesses all by yourself, depending on how much you want to work, how many clients you want to serve. But you can do a lot of these online or modern small businesses all on your own. And that's rad, because it just reduces the amount of financial risk you take starting your business. You don't have to go hire a full team. You don't have to go buy a bunch of inventory or rent a space or whatever. You have a computer, you have a website. You can start selling stuff and start, especially service-based businesses. But if you have success and your business is doing well, eventually you're not going to have time to do all the things. And again, I think our first instincts as business owners are, well, let's find some contractors. Let's take the bookkeeping off my plate. Let's take the accounting off my plate. Let's get a social media manager. Let's get a VA, right? All these contractor-based roles. But like I was saying with the right-hand person, if you really want someone who's going to understand the full scope of your business, who's in the day-to-day, who can really free you up to be able to focus on revenue-generating activities, even if it's just like, hey, free me up so I can serve more clients, so I can increase my client load because I'm not having to spend all this other time doing this other random crap. Sometimes an employee can be a lot better solution than a contractor if you're trying to take those first steps. And if you are actually trying to teach someone, mentor someone how to do the work you do for your clients, so you're no longer the only person who does that, an employee is almost always, legally you might have to hire an employee. A contractor might not even be an option in that case. But it could be the first step you take towards scaling your service. I remember when we hired our first bookkeeper that wasn't our family friend, Susan, who was the only bookkeeper we had brought into the business at that time when it was just Corey, myself, and Susan. And hiring our first employee was a big deal because we're bringing someone in from the outside and trying to teach them our way of doing bookkeeping and serving our clients. Now we've gotten really good at hiring our accountants that we bring into our business. And taking Corey and I out of the day-to-day operations. Now, I'm the CEO of a 15-person team. And, I'm not really doing a lot of client work, only the kind of the client work I want to be doing. And that takes time to get to. And usually it means hiring your first employee. It doesn't just magically happen overnight. I've been doing this 11 years. And I spent years deep in client work. And it was great. I learned the reason I was able to write a book, the reason I'm able to talk about the things that I talk about on our podcast are all because I've had reps seeing and working with our clients, seeing what they're doing and working on our clients' files, doing the bookkeeping, doing the account management work. So that's why I know what I'm talking about. But it started with our first hire to take our first steps towards Corey and I not being so deep in the client work until eventually we could decide if we wanted to do client work or focus on working on the business. So those are my 5 questions for you. Are you breaking any labor laws? Which means you probably need to change a contractor to an employee. Are you paying a bunch of different contractors to do a bunch of different things that's actually costing you more money to have all these contractors than to just bring on one employee? Do you need a right-hand person in your business because, you're overwhelmed and it's getting too hard to manage all these contractors? Are you actually trying to build a culture so that people want to work at your business and people want to do good work in your business? And do you want to take the first steps towards removing yourself from day-to-day operations or from the client work? Then chances are you're going to need to hire an employee. And luckily, there are lots of business coaches and advisors out there who can, and even just like doing Google searches, that can help you with some of this stuff. Even an accountant can help you kind of understand, like, what am I supposed to do with payroll and things like that. And there's really great payroll providers out there. We use Gusto at Evolve Finance. It is by far our favorite service. No payroll service is perfect, but Gusto has really been awesome for our clients, and it's what we use for our own business. I'm not going to get any referrals from this. I probably should have a affiliate link or something like that in the show notes, but I just want you to know paying employees is easier than it's ever been before as a business owner. So don't let that component scare you away from finally taking that step towards hiring your first employee. But as always, if you're interested in learning more about our accounting services, go check us out at evolvefinance.com. And if you would like to learn more about the financial side of running a business and how you can use your numbers to be more strategic and build a more profitable business, then check out my book, Profit Pillars, anywhere really books are sold online. But thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.